everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. I am so excited because I have an absolutely fabulous and special guest today. Her name is Abbey Jones, and she is a wellness coach. And I'm telling you, I've been looking forward to this conversation all day because she and we speak the same language, and I can hardly wait to introduce her. So here she is. Abbey, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Julianne.
I'm excited to have you here. Like I said, before we started the show, I was like, wait a second. She speaks the same language as me. I think this is going to be really fun.
Yes, watching the intro, I was like, oh, okay, no broccoli, no burpees, other things. I'm here for it.
Exactly. That's such a small part of wellness. So I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Yeah, so I have been in the wellness field for about 5 years now. I started at my university, Indiana University, go Hoosiers. And I was working with students there who were trying to kind of set the foundation for their wellness. It's such a pivotal time, I think, to be thinking about health and what you want your wellness to look like, even when you're in school. So that's really where I started. I fell in love. I have a master's degree in public health. I was working in public health for a while. Working on kind of policy and things like that. When I fell in love with coaching, I saw people doing coaching in the work I was doing, and I was like, I think I'd rather be doing that. So I have my wellness certification, my certified health and wellness coach certification. And I've been coaching people who are using tobacco for a few years now and getting ready to branch out and try some new things and work with other folks who are kind of running the gamut of things that they'd like to improve in their wellness. So super excited for that.
I'm really excited to hear you say that about tobacco, because a lot of people, it's kind of like cleaning the house before you have the maid come over. It's like, I got to quit smoking. I got to quit this before I start working on my wellness, without really understanding that that's a huge component of it. So I find that that's pretty fascinating. What made you focus on that?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because I think we have stopped caring about tobacco in a little bit of a way. So many people have quit, and it's not something that we think about as much anymore. But yeah, I do see so many people coming in who have smoked for such a long time and are just ready to be done. And like you mentioned, for a lot of them, it is a stepping stone into other things that they want to focus on. So they'll quit and they want to focus on their nutrition. They quit and they want to focus on mindfulness and exercise. And so it really is a great kind of, like I said, stepping stone for people to really think about what it means to be well.
No, I love that. And, I see, the thing is, I'm in Southern California, and so people don't smoke here, but they vape. They vape like nobody's business. It's like a perfume or something. Either that or it's vilified. One of the two. It depends on where you are, because there's entire towns where you're not allowed to smoke outdoors even. So, or vape for that matter. But I'm just curious. I know that there's not a lot of research or proof that vaping and all that is, bad for your health. But what is your take on that?
So my personal philosophy is that probably anything you're inhaling into your lungs that's not fresh air is not going to be the best thing for you to be doing. That being said, we do have a lot of people who make the transition from smoking to vaping. And it really depends what your goals are after that. So if you'd like to be completely nicotine free, that's awesome. But we do know that there is a significant reduction in harm if you are vaping. So we like people to take that step and then talk about, how do you feel about taking it a step further? But it really is, again, a personal journey for those people. And we love that so many people are getting off of cigarettes as a result of this.
It's something that I find near and dear to my heart. My mom was a smoker, and she was like a smoker's rights kind of a smoker. I'm not even kidding when I say that. And I worked in addiction recovery for so long. So everybody there vapes and smokes, and it's a step down from heroin, so that's a good thing. But so many people want to get off the nicotine as well. And I'm telling you, there's two things that I find more difficult, like for other people I've seen anyway, is sugar and nicotine seem to be really virtually impossible to quit. I mean, it's like so much more work. At least with heroin, you have to go somewhere to buy it, or it's not everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting. sometimes in tobacco, we joke, job security, that's super awesome because we know that there's people who have such a challenging time. And, it's the average that we hear that takes about 10 times for somebody to quit successfully. So there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of learning experiences that have to happen before somebody can really be successful.
Well, I'm glad that you say that because a lot of people feel like they're failures, after the third, the fourth, the fifth time, even like, why can't I quit this? I know it's not good for me. I actually don't want to be doing this, but yet I still find this compulsion to do it. Can you explain a little bit maybe about how the brain works in that capacity, is like the addiction aspect of it, how it's not necessarily a matter of willpower?
Right. Yeah. And so I think there's kind of two distinct things that you have to think about here. So there is the addiction piece for sure. We know that nicotine is highly addictive. It hits the brain in 7 to 10 seconds. You get that rush right away. And so that is a huge piece of it. We are huge advocates for nicotine replacement therapy in my role now, and not going cold turkey. And the other piece of it is the routines that you build for yourself, right? So you smoke with coffee, or you smoke with a drink, or you smoke on your work break. And those are just as hard to break for many people as the physical addiction piece. So it kind of takes two pathways to treat the nicotine addiction and then figure out new ways to literally live every second of your day.
I think that is very important because it's true for any sort of lifestyle change that you have, that, a lot of things are habit, and it's as much the experience as it is the actual thing. So let's say it happens to be donuts, for example, maybe you always have them with your kid on Sunday morning or something. Now that you associate that good feeling in that moment with the donut. So what are your suggestions for somebody who's trying to create new lifestyle habits and changes?
Yeah, the biggest thing I can say is that a complete overhaul 99% of the time is not going to work for you. So I am a huge advocate for those small changes. So if it is a donut, maybe you have a donut with fewer sprinkles the next time, or maybe you have a plain donut. Or so it's not that you're replacing it with an apple right away or something like that, something that is not going to be enjoyable, but you just make those small steps, those small changes. And as you get used to those things, it's the same thing we do, like you said, with tobacco. We're not asking you to do everything at once. We're asking you to take these small steps that you can do and see how those work out for you. And then we can move forward.
I like that because I'm kind of an all or nothing thinker, and I am one of those people, those rare people that's a cold turkey kind of person. That's just what works best for me. But I know that I do not fit the mold. Because I tend to be all or nothing. I can't keep certain things in my refrigerator, like cheese, for example. I can't, because I will go down and eat it. I am so addicted to that stuff. So, there's certain things it's all or nothing. I can't have just a little of. But I love that you say that, you don't have to be cold turkey, because a lot of people think like I do, but they don't actually stop whatever it is that they're, the habit or, the lifestyle that they're trying to improve upon. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's so important that everybody feels like it doesn't have to be one size fits all.
Right. Absolutely. And, as it's September 23rd, I just looked at my calendar. As we get closer to the new year, we see a lot of this happening too, with people who are ready to make these huge overhauls on January 1st. And, that's why we have people coming back and doing these same things year after year. It's that all or nothing mindset is, motivating, I think, to start. But as you kind of try to put it into what you already have to do. So you have your job, you have your kids, you have pets, you have whatever it is that's already always going to be in your life. Those big overhauls are really, really hard to make.
Absolutely. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. Like you said, the small changes, those make the biggest difference too. Especially if you're like trying to lose weight, for example, you shouldn't be losing 10 pounds a week.
Right.
Unless you're morbidly obese, it would not be healthy to be losing vast amounts of weight, in such a fast amount of time. So I like that it's the small changes. Now, for somebody, I know that you've been focusing with nicotine, but obviously that's not your only specialty. And I do want to talk about that, but there's something that before we go any further, I want to bring it back to, is you were talking about in school, students Because a lot of, they call it what, the freshman 15, things like that. It's like all of a sudden you're free from your home and you're eating crap food. You're not sleeping anymore. You're not taking care of yourself. So as somebody who has helped students and been one, what are some recommendations for younger people?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, again, finding that balance. One of the things that we're super concerned about with students, especially right now, is burnout and the effects on your health of burnout, especially in this virtual classrooms that we've had over the past year and a half or so. You're on all of the time. You have Zoom classes, you have, your online assignments. And so I think the biggest thing that I can just tell that I would recommend to students, and what I got benefit out of when I was in college, is just taking a healthy break. I was very lucky that Indiana University was huge. And so I could go for a walk outside my dorm, or I could go to the gym that was right across the street. Most colleges have free gym memberships, which is super nice. But, I would just say making those breaks that you do take for yourself worthwhile. So if it is, a quick meditation, if it is a quick yoga session, if it is a quick walk, again, it doesn't have to be these super big things where you're sacrificing schoolwork for exercise or sacrificing schoolwork for mindfulness. It can be very short things that really make a difference for you.
That's a good point too, especially with something like meditation. Somebody who doesn't meditate, now all of a sudden they want to do, an hour a day or something. It's like, you couldn't sit still for 5 minutes. What do you mean? You want to go from 0 to 60 minutes an entire day? That's a huge commitment. So once again, those small steps. But what I'm hearing you talk about is self-care. And I'd love for you to describe what you think self-care is.
Yeah. So in my personal day-to-day, self-care is the biggest thing that I would say I do for self-care in my, 40-hour work week that I have, is I schedule breaks for myself. So on my calendar, it says break, and I will not be online at that time. I will be making lunch, or I will be exercising, or I will be doing something to take care of myself. And I turn my Slack notifications off and I turn my calendar off. And that is my time for me. So it's important to me to have that time as it is for me to be in any other meeting. And that has been instrumental for me to be able to take care of myself as a remote worker, somebody who is online all day.
That's a really good point too, because a lot of people, even though I don't know about where you are, but in California, a lot of the restrictions have been lifted. And so people are starting to go back to work, but a lot of people are staying home still and working remotely. And this is a new way of being now. So I know that for me, sometimes, because I work remotely for the most part, I can get stuck doing nothing all day instead of doing what I need to do. So what would you say to somebody like me that all of a sudden, that's not a form of self-care. That's a form of self-sabotage when you, right. So what would you say to somebody like me?
Yeah. So again, I live and die by my Google Calendar. So that is super huge for me. And again, I think it doesn't only have to be meetings on there. It can be, this is my scheduled work time. This is when I know I'm going to be at my computer. And, hours is probably not great. And you can, again, schedule those breaks in there and do those things. But I really make it a priority to make sure that my working time has these specific blocks for me to be heads down and working and coaching, because I am the same way. If my calendar is clear, I'm like, oh, great. That means I have nothing to do today. And that's not necessarily the case. So I would say just making those things as visible to yourself as possible, whether that be in a meeting, a task, something like that, is super helpful.
Yeah. And like you said, putting in the breaks, making sure that you consider yourself as a priority.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that, I know that food in particular is something that a lot of people struggle with, just trying to decide what is best for them. But I think that you're like me, where everybody's a bio individual. And for me, I don't eat meat, but that might be perfect for you. So what would you say to somebody who maybe wants to start eating healthier? I mean, do they have to define what healthier is for them first, or what's your suggestion?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing in my program that I'm super excited about is, one of the first session is, what does wellness mean to you? What is it that you want to get out of wellness? Yeah, we're doing the deep work first. So at that. And we go from there. It's, I know what works for me, and that's super awesome for me, but I would never tell somebody this worked for me, so that has to mean that it's going to work for you. Everything is super individualized, and you really have to be clear about what your wellness vision is in order to be able to move forward.
That's important, because a lot of people think that they can just borrow yours, for example, and you're just going to tell them exactly what to do, and then they're going to get this result that they want. But when you agree, how are you going to get the result that you want if you don't even know what that result is?
Right. Exactly.
So when people are working with you, do you help them figure out what their goals are? Do they need to have goals? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the first kind of half of what we'll be doing together is a lot of that deeper work. We're going to be talking about visions and limiting beliefs and mindset, super exciting stuff. And really, I think things that you need in order to set goals in the first place. And then the second half of the program is going to be goal setting, or I like to refer to them as experiments. Even you can kind of think of it as a science experiment if you want to. And this is what worked, this is what didn't work. And so the purpose of having a few weeks of us together to do that is I'm somebody you can report back to. We can kind of brainstorm future things together. So, like I said, a lot of mindset work, but then a little bit of goal setting to hopefully set you up for success when you're on your own after the program is over.
You know what's amazing too about thinking about it like a science experiment is that it's not for a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. It's not a perfect thing. It's an experiment. So there's no failure. Even if it doesn't go the way that I thought it should, then there's no failure. So that doesn't take a ding in my self-esteem when I'm thinking of it as an experiment. Like, does this work?
Right. Yeah, it's so hard to get out of that pass fail mentality. It is so hard. I am also a recovering perfectionist. So totally hear you. But one of the questions that I like to ask people, no matter how the goal went, was what was your best experience with the goal? So even if it, wasn't perfect, what was one bright spot that you can pick out, or a learning experience that you can pick out that you could take with you moving forward? So my hope is that questions like that and having conversations like that will make it feel like less of a chore and a burden, and that test almost to be perfect.
I love the word gamify. So if you could gamify life and make it fun, then, on like an experiment, I mean, who doesn't want to like explode something and, I mean, not in your life necessarily, but you understand where I'm going with the analogy. No, I love that idea of it just being fun instead of a chore, because nobody wants to do chores.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think that's another kind of mentality that we have to get out to, that self-care and wellness have to be hard and things that you have to put into your day. I really do want to make self-care fun. I enjoy doing the things that I do for self-care. Took me a while to figure out what those things were, but once I did, it was, such a game changer for me. And that's what I want to be able to give to other people.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that it took you a while to figure out what those things were for you, because what I'm hearing you say is that it's different for everybody. And I love that, because, I can't even tell you how many, I work as a spiritual life coach as well. And so there's a lot of fasting involved in certain things. And there's different levels of fasting. So, people automatically hear fasting water instead of like, okay, fresh juices and, vegetables and, broth and things like that. There's a huge difference between starving yourself and having fresh food. So, but it's funny how we could just sort of hear different things and like automatically say, no, I can't do that. And then just never try anything in that realm, because that one part of it just doesn't quite fit with, what you're trying to accomplish or what you think you should be doing or something like that. So I love that. But so did you experiment? Is that how you figured out what worked for you?
Yeah. And, I would say that I'm still a work in progress. I don't think I'm there yet. But what I found, especially, it's so wild, but I think during the pandemic was when I really sat down and thought about like, probably going to be in my house for a while. I'm going to be working remotely. How can I, make the best out of my situation? And, how can I eat the way that makes me feel good? How can I move the way that makes me feel good especially when we didn't have the gyms open? How can I do all of these things at home that make me feel good? And it's a blessing in disguise, really. I think that I've been able to take that time for myself. And again, that's really what I want to offer to people, is that you deserve to take that time for yourself to
Mhm.
figure out what works best for you. And I'm happy to kind of be there along the way.
I love that. So, we're about to go to commercial break, but that being said, I would love for you to say, how long is your program?
Yep. So my program is going to be 12 weeks. So again, the first 6 weeks is that mindset work, that
Mhm.
kind of getting ready to go. And then our second 6 weeks together will be setting some goals, trying some things out, and seeing how they go.
You know, a lot of people think, okay, I just want to get to, the doing, the
Mhm.
doing aspect, but they don't realize that, when you build a house, you have to build the foundation first. And if you don't build the foundation first, your house is not going to last. So I love that you spend that much time on building a really strong foundation, because if you don't have that, then no matter what you build, it's not going to last. But if you have a strong foundation, even if you say fall off, or, you still have the foundation. So that doesn't go away.
Right. Absolutely. And it's so funny, as I've been building this business, I'm working with a business coach actually, and kind of trying to set the foundation. And when I met with her the first time, I was like, yep, I'm ready to do social media. I'm ready to get this program off the ground. She was like, let's slow down. Like, let's just take a second. And that's what really inspired me to make the mindset work as long as it is, was knowing that once you have that solid ground, like you said, to stand on, there's no tearing it down. It's going to be there.
Exactly. And, like you said, you're a work in progress. I think everybody is, because if you're not growing, you're dying. So,
Right.
hopefully you're changing and evolving as you get older. That's just kind of like, I don't play with Barbies anymore. So I'm not going to eat the same things either. And the things that, maybe might have worked for me to feel closer to, more centered, aren't the same as they were before. So it's okay to change that, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, my program is really going to focus on students and young professional women. We're seeing a
Perfect.
lot of transition,
Mm-hmm.
from home to college, like you mentioned, and then from college into a 40-hour work weekend. Those can be really jarring transitions. And I think the strategies will probably change, but how you feel, what your mindset is, and what you really want for yourself is really never going to change. So that's, again, why that mindset work, the first half of the program, is so important for me.
Well, I just feel compelled to say that you are very needed. And I'm just so excited for what you are offering people, because it's such, like you said, it's such a transition. Both of those things are huge, but nobody really ever acknowledges that. It's like you're just expected to know how to do this stuff, and there's nobody guiding you. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I've seen personally too, was, there were a lot of resources for me on
Mhm.
campus. There were a lot of resources for me when I kind of came out into the world, but
Mhm.
nobody to really guide me along. And so I'm super excited to be that person for people.
And something else too that I think is worth mentioning is that you have a coach. I mean, it's a business coach, but you
Yeah.
have a coach. I would never hire a coach that didn't have a coach, because if, like, I have more than one coach, but I'm just saying that I don't want to work with somebody who can't see the value in coaching. And
Yeah.
so if I'm going to offer coaching myself, then I should have a coach as well, wouldn't you say?
Yes, definitely. I'm so grateful to be having this experience with my coach, because I've never had a coach before, and I was ready to kind of dive in and
Mhm.
see how it went. But being on the other side, man, I know what it feels like to put that work in. I know what it feels like
Mhm.
to tell my coach about all the great things that I did over the last week. And I'm really grateful to have had this experience and be able to be on that side and be in those people's shoes before they come and work with me.
I love that. Well, Abby, it's time for us to go to a commercial break. So we'll be right back in just a moment. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't she amazing? Oh my goodness. Okay. So for those of you who are watching us live, I just want to say hello. Always a pleasure. Thank you for being here. But as I mentioned, we do need to go to a commercial break. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Now, you can vibrationally align your aura. you can gain a larger and spiritual perspective on life, relationships, God, people, wellness, and money. You can also have moments of meditation and reflection any time of the day. And reading the thrilling, adventurous, and mystical story of Shaga will just add more faith to your daily experience of the mystery of the universe.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
As human beings, we are meant to thrive in an environment where true love is shared, where we are welcome just as we are, a space we connect with others with the single purpose to find God as love within, a place we learn to raise our consciousness and vibration for happiness, wellness, and wealth creation. Transformative, an online spiritual gathering for everyone. This invitation is sent to you by www.livingfaithschool.org.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And today's special guest is the Miss Abbey Jones. Welcome back.
Yeah.
So, we've been skirting around this program of yours, and I really want to talk about this. So you've got this amazing opportunity coming up soon. When does it start? What can we find at Abbey Wellness or Abbey Jones Wellness Coach?
Yeah. So I don't have an exact launch date at this time, but I will tell you that my birthday is October 11th. So I would be expecting something around then. Be a nice birthday present to myself and to everybody, hopefully, who will be joining me to launch around that time. So right now, we're just having really great conversations on my Instagram about what wellness means, what it looks like. And this week in particular, we're talking about that inner glow that you get when you find things that help you to be well and that work for you. So we talk, we run the gamut of things. I think we talk about a lot on Instagram, but I really want it to be about your inner self, what that inner glow, like I said, that comes out for you. And so we're talking about a lot more than diet and exercise and those external things that we see when we think about wellness.
Well, absolutely. It starts from the inside out. So, a lot of people, they think that they just, don't get me wrong. It matters what you put into your body and how you treat it physically, but even down to the television shows that you watch, what you are spending your energy on and your time and like filling your brain with. I mean, these are things like, how can you expect to be a super happy person and joyous and free if you're watching crime shows with death. And, I mean, if that's your main staple, then, I don't see how that's an uplifting sort of situation. I mean, granted, I love me a good Law and Order, Law and Order or something like that. But, you gotta be careful. So I love that you talk about that inner glow. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're building a community. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And so building a community on Instagram right now. And one of the super exciting things that I will be including as part of my program is a private Facebook group. So graduates of my program will be able to connect with each other, which I'm super excited about. I can't overestimate, I don't think, the value of community and knowing that somebody is in those same shoes that you are. So I'm really excited to be able to provide that too.
And what I'm hearing is even if the program's 12 weeks, it doesn't end because of the Facebook group. So there's going to be other ways for people to still connect. That's a part of wellness too, is that connection.
Yes.
I think that's so important. So I'm curious, since you've been talking about this inner glow, what does that mean to you and to people that you've been chatting with?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I had a conversation with a friend that I've known for probably 20 years now. And I posted a selfie on Instagram and she was like, look at you, like you're glowing. And I was like, my hair wasn't perfect. My makeup wasn't perfect. I was in like a sweatshirt, I'm pretty sure. But it's just that genuine feeling I think that you have that radiates out to other people. And when she said that to me, I was shocked, first of all, because my hair wasn't great. My makeup wasn't great. And I was in a sweatshirt, but just, but then I took a look at the picture and I thought, wow, I don't know if I've ever seen myself look that genuinely happy before in a selfie on Instagram. And so that's what I want to be able to have my clients see is doesn't have to be perfect. We talked about that perfectionist mentality, but what makes you feel so good that people notice?
Ooh, that's beautiful. And I like that you said that too, that, your hair wasn't perfect. You were probably wearing a sweatshirt. You mean you were real. You weren't Instagram perfect. You were a real human and, your real energy was flowing through you out into the universe. And that's what people are drawn to. People that, they don't, and there's a difference between that Instagram fake and that genuine glow that you're talking about. And I love that because a lot of people don't talk about that glow. Everybody wants the glow, but they don't know, how do I get the glow?
Yeah.
So I love that. So you said around the mid-October is roughly when, but people can start joining and following and being a part of the conversation right away, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm super active on Instagram. I'm posting, several times a week. So you'll see my face quite often and love chatting in the comments, love chatting in DMs. So please feel free to reach out at any point if anybody has questions or just wants to pop in and say hi. I love connecting with people on Instagram.
I love that. So, I know that you've mentioned a few different things that let me try and rephrase this. What I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, even though you specialize in certain things, it seems like you have a heart of service, and whoever reaches out to you, if you can help them and they're willing to help themselves, that's the important thing. If they're willing to help themselves, then you're willing to be their guide. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. And, I think the other thing that's really important for people to understand is that I am not an expert in everything. And I think that's kind of the mentality that people go in. I've had people ask me before if I was going to have a drill sergeant mentality for them. And I will tell you, probably in the 40 minutes that we've been talking, you can tell that that's not me. I'm not a drill sergeant. And I'm not an expert in everything. And so what I really want to just encourage people to understand about coaching in general and the program that I'm putting out there is it's all led by you. It's all led by my clients. I'm, like I said, never going to force people into anything. And yeah, we're going to take the road that you want to take.
And that's a beautiful thing because then there's something for everybody and it's not forced. Like you said, I mean, granted, you are pointing in the direction. So it's not like all free, but it's still client led, which a lot of people don't really understand about wellness. It's like, we can't do it for you. Right. I am a personal trainer and, I can't do your push-ups for you. I can guide you, but you still got to do the push-ups. So it's the same idea with wellness for sure.
Exactly.
I love that. So I know that one size doesn't fit all with wellness and, you know, that inner glow, but what's something that maybe you found for you that was kind of surprising, that was like, oh my gosh, this actually works?
Yeah. So something that I've been getting really into lately that I was very unsure about, to be totally honest, right off the bat, was manifestation work.
Oh,
And
amen.
yeah, kind of manifesting what it is that you want for yourself. I was like, oh, I don't know. Like that seems a little out there. But
Mhm.
what I found is that hearing those things, hearing the things that you hear in a manifestation meditation have just energized me to go out and do those things and to make those things possible.
Mhm.
So like you said, like just because I hear in a manifestation meditation that I'm going to have $1 million doesn't mean that $1 million is going to fall into my lap right away.
Mhm.
But it gives me the energy and the encouragement to get out there and take steps that maybe will lead me to $1 million one day. And so, and I think that's very similar to what we
Mhm.
were talking about in wellness coaching, is that, you know, we can talk about the things that will get you there. And hopefully by talking about those things and getting excited about them, you're energized to go out and do them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're talking about manifestation, because that's something that I talk about a lot. And it's one of my favorite topics. But, you know, the thing that you said, and I really want to accentuate, is that, you know, it's great. There's nothing wrong with wanting $1 million. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think part of like the way the manifestation works that people tend to not realize is that you will get these ideas, you will get these things that just all of a sudden come to you, like that intuition. And that's where you start taking your action. And that's where the manifestation comes. Like, you have to be a willing participant. You don't get to sit in your recliner and wish it. Most people, it doesn't work. I mean, granted, every once in a while it does, but you know, there's still some effort on your part. And in order to keep what you've created, you have to become the person that can keep it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's part of wellness too. It's like, yeah, you can, you know, you can all of a sudden, let's say that's why people lose weight and gain it right back, because they didn't actually change their foundation about how they're going to show up. So they lose the weight and then they go back to exactly how they were before, you know, pre-diet or something. And you know, it's such a, you know, you can do it, but if you don't become the person that's, you know, I keep using this because it's an easy one that everybody, you know, can relate to, is if you don't have the mindset of a thin person, then you're not going to be a thin person. So that's just kind of how it works. But I love this inner glow. I want to go back to that because that is one of my favorite topics. So would you say that inner glow could come from a multitude of different things?
Yeah, you know, I kind of think it has to. I don't think that you can rely on one single thing to give you that glow. And that's why I was super excited to hear it. And I think was super excited to talk about it on Instagram this week, was that it takes work to get there. I've been doing a lot of things, like I said, over the past year and a half to get to where somebody noticed that I was having this inner glow. And so, yeah, you know, again, it doesn't just fall into your lap. There are steps that you have to take, but the thing that I keep coming back to is once you get there, it's people notice, people show up, and you know, it just feels so good. And so that's what I want to keep reinforcing when I'm talking about my program and my services.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, self-care, I mean, it really is. And I'd love for us to talk a little bit more about self-care because, you know, a lot of people think of self-care as kind of an extravagance instead, you know, but it's different for everybody. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with going out and getting a manicure because, you know, there's absolutely, that's self-care too. But so is sleeping well. So is not talking to a toxic friend. You know, these are all self-care. What is your idea of self-care? Because I know it's different for everybody.
Yeah. So, you know, for me personally, and I wish it was just champagne and chocolates in the bubble bath, but unfortunately that's not all that it is. So, you know, I know that I have to get movement in. I know so I usually get movement in. I'm around 12. I'm a morning person. So that midnight day break is super important to me. The mindfulness work, the manifestation work has been so huge for me to quiet down that recovering perfectionist mind. That's so big for me. And just eating well. I think, one of the things that I've talked about recently on Instagram is I've kind of run the gamut from I'm not eating enough to even sustain myself living, and to the other extreme of I'm eating fast food 5 times a week. So like it's
Me too.
been a huge kind of relief, almost like a weight off my shoulders to be somewhere in the middle. And so that's really what it is for me. It's finding that balance. It's finding things that I know make me feel good every single day. And those are the things that I found for myself that really, really do that.
It's something too that people don't really think about is, I had ice cream the other day because I live in Southern California and it's been like 90 degrees here. It has been so hot. And so I figured ice cream treat, it made me sick. Well, why did it make me sick? 1 sugar, 2 dairy. And I know this, but not like throwing up or anything really dramatic, but I couldn't figure out why I didn't feel well. Hello, it's like garbage in, garbage out. So if you want to achieve something, or if you want to make better choices for yourself, it does matter what you put into your body, because one good action creates another good action. Same thing the other way. So, so I know for me, it's kind of like a lot of people, do cheat days, and I just have planned celebrations, shall we say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one thing that I also want to emphasize, and something that's really been beneficial for me, is not to think of it as cheating, but to just think of it as something that's going on, because it can be so easy to get into that spiral of just continuing on with that. And when it's just another thing that happens to you with no guilt or shame or stigma attached to it, so much easier to get back to, what you consider on track and to what does make you feel good. And so I am all for removing those stigmatizing negative words from things. I'm never going to talk to you about good or bad foods. I'm never going to talk to you about, how much exercise, what's good or bad exercise. It's all about you. It's all about what makes you feel good.
Exactly. And comparing yourself to somebody else is not necessarily the best thing to do, because apples and oranges, people are different. So what works for me might not work for somebody else. I'm a hiker. I love to hike, but maybe, you're a gym person, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with having different styles of movement, different ways of eating, as long as it's for your own benefit and for your own good. And like you said, once you can quiet your mind, that little judgmental, always talking voice, then you can hear that higher self that's like, okay, maybe don't eat that cheese. You're not going to feel good, or you won't sleep as well. Or, people don't realize that, what you eat, what you drink, how much you exercise, the shows that you watch, the things that you read, all of that even affects your sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, then think about it. Then you have like a drunk mind. So when you say too that like all of these self-care is things that add to that inner glow. Yeah, I love that. What are some things that other people were talking about with the inner glow?
Yeah, it is super individual for everyone. I think I do hear a lot of people say that movement is super important to them. So, I love my fitness apps. I'm in my office right now that also doubles as my workout space. I love that. And, I have a close friend and a follower who is a former collegiate cross country runner, and she still loves going out, believe it or not, after 4 years of collegiate cross country, and loves going out for a run. Helps her quiet her mind. It's kind of a way to meditate, in nature for her. And so I do hear movement a lot. I do hear mindfulness a lot. I think, that's becoming even more mainstream now, to quiet your mind and get into just being in your inner self. So those are big things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And mindfulness used to be one of those woo-woo things too, that, manifestation and the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Well, there's a law of gravity too. So it doesn't really, just because you don't necessarily believe in it doesn't necessarily mean it isn't true. But, you brought up an interesting point about mindfulness. And there's different ways people, there's different types of meditations, there's nature walks, there's all kinds of different, ways to be mindful. What are some ways that you would recommend to somebody who this is a brand new concept for them?
Yeah, one of the things that I really love talking to people about is mindful walking. And so you just go outside, so many people don't even really like pay attention to what their neighborhood looks like. So that is what I encourage people to do, is take a walk around your block. What colors do you see? How do your feet feel on the pavement? What does it sound like? And so it's really just about shutting off your mind and really being in the present moment. So I love that because it does combine physical activity. I'm a big advocate of guided meditation because it helps me to turn my brain off to hear somebody else talking. But I love, all of the gamut of resources that is out there now for people to try out, the apps and all of those things. So I know that there's something out there for everybody, which is super awesome.
And there really is. And, I love that you brought up the guided meditation, because that's just one type. I mean, there's so many different kinds. There's walking meditation, which is mindfulness. There's so many different options. So maybe you're not going to sit there in the lotus position, oming yourself, but you might find something like a guided meditation that works for you. And, for me, that's how I started. And there's no shame in that. And then I actually had a Zen coach and he spent 13 years in a monastery. So he taught me how to meditate like him. And that changed the game for me as well. But I wouldn't have been able to do it at first because it's literally staring at a wall. So, and it's kind of crazy. It's not that easy. Like the mind, as you said, I'm not good at that. I have to keep on bringing myself back to the present moment all the time. I'm like, oh, wait, that was interesting. Okay, back to what I'm doing. Have you ever had any surprising, I'll give you an example. So I used to live in Italy and I took an I went to art school in Italy. That's why I was there. And I took this outdoor painting class, and we went to the same exact spot for 2 hours I believe it was Wednesday, every single Wednesday for maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, something like that. And I was probably a month and a half in. So we're talking 10 hours of staring at exactly the same spot. 10 hours. And 10 hours in is when I noticed a building.
Yeah.
I'm like, that didn't suddenly pop up. I mean, that had been there hundreds of years. And I just noticed it 10 hours into this, looking at the same exact spot. So for me, when you talk about mindfulness and walking the neighborhood, you can go, wouldn't you say, like the same route and look for different things maybe. What's something that you have discovered in your own mindfulness that was kind of a surprise for you?
Yeah, it's so funny because I do try to do the mindful walking. I have lived in my neighborhood for about 5 months now. So I'm still pretty new. So I'm trying to give myself a little bit of slack if I don't notice everything right away. But literally in my own driveway, the last time that I went out for a walk, I noticed a tree with flowers on it that had just completely gone over my head. And, I think that the interesting thing about it was like, we've talked about, my partner and I have talked about, like, should we put foliage in? Should we put plants in or whatever? But I was like, oh my gosh, like, look how beautiful this already is. And I think that is one of the huge benefits of mindfulness is you really, in the idea of getting everything else out of your mind, you're really putting things back into a very novice perspective. And so that, that's one example, a tree, a flower, whatever, but it can really apply to everything else that it is that's, cluttering your mind too, which I love.
Yeah, that's beautiful too, because how you do the little things is how you do the big things. So if and, I love to share my story about that building because I would consider myself an observant person and, that I pay attention. I mean, there's a lot of time when I don't, obviously, but I mean, I was specifically paying attention and it took me 10 hours to notice an entire building in this spot that I've been staring at. So and yeah, I just think it's fascinating how, it kind of makes me think, what else are we missing?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that goes back to, again, the way that your perception of the world. So, and your perception of yourself, oh my gosh, so important. So by having that time to just focus on what is there, focus on your breath, focus on, the leaves or whatever, I always come out of that feeling like I have even a new perspective on myself, a new perspective on a problem that I was dealing with 5 minutes ago that seemed like the end of the world that no longer is. So that's what I love about mindfulness and taking that time for yourself.
And this is something that you, I'm assuming, speak about in your program as well and sort of guide people with.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I do think that meditation and mindfulness and mindset work are coming into the mainstream more, but I'm super excited to be able to talk to people more about it and hopefully make it not seem intimidating, not seem like something that is not going to give you any results, that woo-woo kind of science that we talked about. So yeah, I can't wait to be able to help people shift their perspective and their mindset around wellness.
Well, I know that for me, I don't need to understand how electricity works to use it. So, mindfulness and meditation and things like that, even though there is a ton of science to back all of this up, I don't necessarily need to know all that just to make it work for me. And if I'm trying to improve my life, why not try something new? Just because it's unknown doesn't mean that, I shouldn't try it. I mean, if that were the case, I wouldn't be walking and I wouldn't be able to drive a car, for instance. These are all things that were at one time new.
Absolutely. So again, just going back to that idea of experimentation, which I'm super excited to talk to people about too. And, we're here, we might as well give it a chance. And if you end up feeling good afterwards, that's all the better.
Awesome. And so with your program, I know that the other 6 weeks, the second half, that's more of would you say the doing part?
Yeah.
So is there like a week for nutrition and a week for movement, or how does it break down?
Yeah. So again, we're going to go back to that wellness vision that we're going to set right off the bat. Week 1, we're talking about visioning. So really the goals are going to stem from there. And if people want to talk about nutrition and want to talk about fitness, that's super awesome. But if they have other priorities and other things that will get them toward their vision, we're going to focus there.
And so is this group coaching or one-on-one?
One-on-one coaching. So you'll be working exclusively with me for the 12 weeks. And then, the opportunity to get into that Facebook community afterwards too. So a little bit of that social interaction too.
Amazing. I love that. Especially because, there's that community energy that kind of, if you can pool your positive energy with other positive people, it exponentially increases the odds of you succeeding as well. Because first of all, you don't feel alone. Yeah. You're not the only one. So I love that. And then, you can chat about things like that inner glow and have these kinds of fun conversations and keep it yourself, in the loop of wellness instead of, putting yourself as an afterthought. I love that so much.
Yes. That's what I'm all about. Putting yourself first. I'm so excited for people to be able to do that with me.
I love that. So we only have about 2 minutes left. What would be something that you would love to share with the audience? It could be something completely new and different, or if you want to reiterate something that's really important, that's great too.
Yeah. So one thing that I know that I didn't get a chance to mention, but I'm super excited to announce that the name of my program is Self-Care 101. So I'm diving headfirst into that college learning type of theme. So it really is just a way for you to get your feet wet into wellness and really find out what works for you. So that is coming, like I said, very soon in the next few weeks. And I will, of course, be sharing along the way on my Instagram.
Something though that I feel is important to say is that what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this may be 101, but my 101 might be different than somebody else's. So it doesn't really matter how far along you are in your own wellness journey, because you're going to be figuring out what wellness is to you at that particular time. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that goes back to what we talked about where, we're building this foundation and the strategies might change over time, but we're really going to have, very similar whys. We're going to have really similar, things that are going to keep us going over time. And that's what I'm really excited to get to build with people.
I love that so much. Yay. And I like the name of that too, because self-care, it's so much more than broccoli and burpees. Yeah. Well, Abby, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And I hope that you'll come back again soon.
Yes, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Julianne.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Oh, I did not want that to end. My goodness, she definitely knows what she's talking about. And I think that she has a great way of breaking things down into easy to understand. So no matter where you are in your own wellness journey, check her out on Instagram, and it might be a perfect fit for you as well. So that's all the time that we have for today. And I can't believe it's already Thursday. So happy weekend, everyone. And we'll be back on Monday. See you soon.